everybody, this is HG Shaves here. I'm back with the video today. I'm very excited just because, it's the first week of September and finally got through with that austere August thing. And so now I get to start working through the big queue of products that I've managed to somehow put together in the month of August. Today is a kind of a cool shave because I'm combining two brands, one old, one new, in EverReady and Declaration Grooming. And this is one of my favorite things to do, combine those old razors with the new modern artisan soaps. And so why don't we just get into what I'm going to be using today. We'll start with the razor. This is the EverReady Streamline, otherwise known as EverReady Ambassador or Gem Jewel. The same razor, more or less, with some slight differences, sold under different names depending on which case it was released in. Gillette did that also with a lot of their vintage razors. And some things I like about this particular razor, I love the knurling here. It allows you to kind of put one finger up top here, and then the rest can go right here onto this knurling, and it feels very secure. This is chromium plated, which is sort of unique amongst vintage razors. They didn't do this on too many of them. It's got a good weight to it, feels much more substantial than like a Gem 1912 or Gem Junior. It's heavier and just, it feels more dense. And the other thing that I really like about this head design is instead of the little blade stops that you usually would see on a Gem 1912, which are very, very small and pop up from the comb here. Here, there actually appears to be dedicated, what I'm calling side pieces. I have no idea what you call it, but which is to say that the edge of the blade on either side, the geometry of the head also jets out to reflect that. And so to me, the blade feels really secure, even more so than usual with this particular head design. And I do think it's just a very pretty, handsome razor. I'll talk more about how it shaves when we get to the shaving part, but that's the razor for today, EverReady Streamline. Next up is a old EverReady 300P. You should be able to see that there. Brush handle, which was kindly restored and reknotted by a new buddy of mine online on Reddit, Pencil Neck. Thank you, man, for doing this. He did a fantastic job cleaning up this handle. I love the green, yellowish green color here on the bottom. From what I've read, these are two different materials here. Like this is Bakelite here on the bottom, and I think this is some kind of rubber, maybe. If anybody has any insight on that, feel free to let me know. But I know that it is at least two different actual materials for the two parts of this brush. Inside of it, I had him drop in a Maggard 24 millimeter brown synthetic, which I really just chose it because I thought it would look nice. And I don't know if this is intended to simulate like a horsehair brush and being sort of a faux horse brush, because it doesn't say that anywhere on the Maggard site, and I haven't read anybody say anything like that. But in the way that it has performed this week, in terms of being kind of a, it's not a ton of backbone, and it's not the densest brush. It does sort of feel like a horsehair brush. Not that I've used one personally, but from what I've heard, people using horsehair brushes, that's generally how they kind of describe them. So again, we'll talk more about this as we get going, but a beautiful brush nonetheless. And then finally, for our soap today and aftershave, Declaration Grooming Mayflower. I decided to let my wife pick what I was going to use this week because I didn't wear any fragrances, any scented aftershave soaps, nothing like that in August. And so I wanted to make sure that I used something this week that she liked. And I've got the soap here. You'll notice it's got some moisture on it because I did do a light bloom. Scott actually recommends Blooming Icarus because it's very firm. And I experimented this week blooming and not blooming, and I found, you can absolutely make it work without blooming, but just for my loading technique and the water I have here, I found that just putting a touch of water on the puck before that helps in terms of building up the lather. The scent is meant to be a floral scent for people who don't like florals, to put it simply. It's got kind of 3 top note floral notes, and then to balance it out, it has these sweeter notes of vetiver, tobacco, and rosewood. I get a strong amount of tobacco out of the soap and the matching splash, and it's a different sort of floral scent that I'm used to smelling, because usually the floral scents that I've used, they combine some sort of citrus, and it makes for a very bright fragrance, which I enjoy, but it's also nice to smell this sort of different perspective on floral scents. So with that said, I'm gonna get loaded up, lathered up, and I'll bring you back in just a sec. Okay, loaded for about 45 seconds there, and got a pretty wet sort of load here on the brush. And this week I've noticed I haven't had to add too much water to the face after starting to face lather with the blooming method, that is. So let's see how this goes. Well, I can already tell you that I lied to you. And I'm going to need to add some water to this. All right, so I'm happy with where this lather ended up. It's got a very gluey, low structure lather, but it has to be my favorite out of all of those low structure lathers just because of the face feel. It's just absolutely fantastic. It might have something to do with the goat's milk that's in this formula. And yeah, it just feels great. So I've warmed up the Streamline here, and let's get into pass number 1 with the grain. Let me get some lather off my fingers here before I try and do a little stretching. So I found the ideal angle for shaving with this razor to be a bit, I found that I need to hold the head instead of, totally flat, more like this. And I believe that's what EverReady suggested you do in their little ads for this razor. If you go back and look at the original advertisements for these razors, you can see what sort of angle they suggest, because it does vary depending on which model you're using, as it should. Just like DEs, there are different angles that work for different razors, and even in the gem case on some of those Micromatic models, like I've seen some of those razors, it says on the cap, hold flat against face. I mean, actually on the razor. Or you have the case of the flying wing guiding eye bullet tip that has a circle in the middle, so that you put that up against your face, just again to help guide you. So it's been interesting to learn about those things. So in terms of how this razor feels, it feels sort of aggressive. Like you can feel the blade. And I think because of the blade holding mechanism that I mentioned, the blade feels very secure. The blade tends to feel very secure in most of these gem razors because the blade is just thicker than a DE, and so it doesn't wiggle as much. But this one especially feels like, man, it's not moving. However, this razor feels fairly good in use, but it's actually not as efficient as it feels, I'd say, which is kind of rare for me to use a razor that feels that way. And there have been some other people that have felt the same way also, so I know it's not just me. But first pass was totally fine, comfortable, but there's still quite a bit of hair. And so I think you could do 3 passes with this, but just in the fact that I'm shaving like every day these days, I try to keep it to 2. And so let's see how much work we can do in pass number 2. So I'll rinse and I'll be right back. Okay, we're gonna load up for pass number 2. Now that's nice. The lather settled a bit. And although it's thinner, it feels just even better than before. I think I could have maybe loaded 10-15 seconds less off the tub today, and would have saved me some water addition and also just made that first pass feel a little bit more luxurious. So you notice that I'm basically only doing painting at this point. You could, scrub a little bit if you wanted to, but other than splaying and painting the brush, I don't find that the swirling works very well because this brush just doesn't have the backbone to do it. And so I'm really only splaying or painting when I'm building the lather. So yeah. Okay, second and final pass with the Streamline. The balance point is a little bit further down than where there's this little dip in the handle. I think when you first hold this razor in your hand, if you're used to how the 1912 models feel, this razor feels like, again, as I said, just very hefty and substantial, and it feels head heavy, but actually the handle is heavier than you might think, and again, it makes to hold it in the middle quite nice. So I'm going against the grain here now. In terms of comfort, feels about the same as the average gem that I've used in that spot. However, there are definitely some other spots, which we'll get to in a second, to where I don't feel that this razor is as comfortable. I have no idea what that sloshing sound is, that water sound. Maybe we have some dishwashing going on upstairs, which would be unfortunate timing. So sorry about that. Again, feels about the same here on the other side of my face. yeah, it's just fine, you know. And so, because this razor is so much more expensive, than the vast majority of those other gem models, I don't really think that you need to buy one. Unless you're going to become kind of a collector like I'm becoming. If you're just trying to judge these razors, you know, in a shaving way, like how do they shave, I don't think you're missing out. On this one. Although it is a very pretty razor. Certainly important historically. It's just really expensive too. You know, this razor costs 7 times as much as like a Jim Jr. would cost me. And I love the Jim Jr. I'm not convinced any other razor I've tried has shaved better than that. And this part right there, that doesn't feel great. Although actually that last one, that one felt better than usual. It feels notably kind of rough and not smooth because the last gem I used was the EverReady 1914, which I used for the last 2 weeks of August to close out the month. And that razor was like exceptionally smooth. Going against the grain. It felt like as smooth as like a Gillette Tech, but it had, you know, much more efficiency on it. Actually, my technique must have been good today, because there's not actually that much hair that I need to pick up. Say it's about average. So I lucked out. Yeah, that's really nice. So there were a couple shaves this week where I felt like the efficiency of this razor was a little bit lacking. Again, that thing of like, well, it feels kind of aggressive, but it's not actually taking off that much hair. For some reason today, I did really well. That's a really nice 2-pass shave. Oh, let me get that right there. And I'm happy to just leave it at that. No need to go any further, really. So I'll do my final rinse and come and talk to you over PostShape. All right, for PostShape today, we have the matching splash. I'm trying to buy not as many matching sets these days, just for a little variety. But this one I picked up a little while back from a friend, and you know, something like this, you kind of got to get it soap and splash if that's how they have it, because they're going to want to, you know, move both at the same time. I've become quite familiar with the Declaration Splash formula over the past year, and I've used many different bottles of it in different scents and different labels. However, I don't believe the splash formula has changed nearly as much as the soap bases have. You know, from, you know, Bison to Icarus to Milkshake, those are significant changes in the soap formula. But I think the Aqua Splashes stay pretty much the same, or very similar, except the fact that the menthol thing has been different. So we started off in the very beginning not using menthol in his splashes, and then everything had menthol, and then now you have the option, like he'll send you a little menthol bottle with your bottle of splash. This one has the menthol in it because it's an old splash, and in some ways it's nice the way the menthol comes on because it's a little bit delayed, so I can enjoy the scent, which I can pick out even a couple more specific floral notes here compared to the soap, but the tobacco note is still very strong. The cooling, again, comes on kind of gradually, And the only thing is the scent of the menthol. It kind of does interfere with this particular scent, in my opinion. So that's my 2 cents. All right, let's do a final rundown of all these products. The restored EverReady 300p. At the beginning of this week, I was really thinking the knot was not going to work for me, but I don't know if, like, it's just gotten a little bit easier to use throughout the week. I don't want to say it's broken in, but maybe it's just settled a bit, and I had sort of figured out how to learn how to use it a bit better. And after all, the knot it's a $10 knot. So, you know, you kind of get what you pay for. And something that Michael Friedberg used to always say was you have to know sort of what the product is expected to do. So he would review, you know, European commercial shave creams that come in a tube, and he would never expect those to perform on the same level as, you know, Declaration's Icarus Base, because you just have to be realistic with your expectations. And so I've been trying to have that realistic mindset this week. For the razor, the EverReady Streamline, the 50s version, 2nd generation version. The cool little razor. I do have the case coming in soon, which maybe I'll do a video with it once I have the case. They released them in a number of cases, as I mentioned, and some very Art Deco inspired. But yeah, it's sort of been hit or miss for me this week. Some weeks it was great, like today, in terms of the efficiency aspect, and other days it wasn't so great. And then finally, the Mayflower. I don't think this scent is going to come back, unfortunately, from what I've heard from Scott anytime soon. But you still can find the soap. I think Top of the Chain still has a couple tubs of it left. So keep your eyes peeled, and you can pick it up if you want to try this wonderful floral scent. So I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you all so much for watching. It's good to be doing some different, using some different gear in these videos. Next week, I'm going to be using the Blackland Blackbird, which is kindly on loan from a friend. But other than that, not quite sure yet. So stay tuned for that. If you have any comments or anything you'd like to say, feel free to reach out. And I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.